You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
In my humble opinion, this is the most overrated day of the NHL season, yet here we are to break it all down. Presented by Bet365, it's time for the Tuesday edition of Leafs Morning Take. It is Nick Alberga and Carter Hutton. Huts, how we doing, buddy? How we feeling?
Not bad. Not bad. Not great. Not great, but not bad. It was good. It's tough. You know, the end of it brings back memories. You know, the locker cleanout day, you go for exit meetings, you do all that. Half the time you're probably so hungover. Like, I mean, so there's so many times I've been to exit meetings wherever half the guys are drunk still. So it's always one of those days that I think is overshadowed by the comments and what goes on, but disappointing to say the least after that game 7, Nicky.
I think we should be privy to all tee times in the market for the next 2 days at least. And they should be disclosed in a list. Like, you know, we have the sunshine list. I want to see the tee time list.
Yeah, seriously. Week. Where are they playing? We can go heckle them. Get on the tee off box. Really let them have it. Tell them what I really think. That'd be nice, eh? First tee off box, you got thousands of people lined up to heckle the players.
Huts, is there a comparison in your life where you had diarrhea that bad, considering what we saw in Game 7? Like, do you remember a time where your stomach hurt that bad, where you're like, man, I've got to go, and you go probably prematurely?
No, I don't know, man. That was tough. That was tough to watch. I was away this weekend. I was in Minneapolis with my little guy, his hockey windup. So we were staying at the Great Wolf Lodge Sunday night.
Oh, okay.
And there was all these teams that were there from Thunder Bay playing. It was kind of a great windup, right? Because we had the holiday and everyone stayed. So we had the game on everywhere and we were watching it. And the amount of people coming to me just so pissed off, so distraught. It like ruined the night for everybody. And I just was like, what did you expect? It felt like we just expected more. And we thought that after game 6, it's so disappointing. The way games 5 and 7 went, just to play that way, to lose that way. And then to hear all these comments after, for me, from the Florida Panthers about like, we shouldn't be that hard on them. It should be like, like, you're making big money, man. This is what comes with it. It's the inconvenient truth of the matter. Much is given, much is expected, Nick.
Oh, you didn't hear? We're too hard on these guys. Too hard. I'm just gonna next year we're gonna do Leafs Morning Take, and I'm just gonna be positive Pete. They'll get blown out 7-1. I'll be like, my goodness, the backup goalie was tremendous tonight, and the coaches they rolled all 4 lines. I can't even do a show like that. I can't even joke about it. We're too hard on these guys. We're too hard, man. That's the there's no blame game to go around. It's the media's fault. It's the fans' fault. They lost Game 7, full diarrhea mode too.
But we throw flowers when due too, though, right? Like, this is the fact of the matter is we do credit guys. When guys play well, but when it's performances like that, like, this is what comes with the territory, right? It's the inconvenient truth. This is the life you chose. And I always say that about goaltending, where you're easily the hero, right? You're easily a hero. And at nights when you're not on, you're going to get criticized. Then they don't need to listen to the comments. If I played in this market, I wouldn't have any social media on my phone. I wouldn't have anything. Then you don't even know. Just live in your bubble and play, because that's what happens when you make 10, 13, whatever, how many millions you make. This is what comes with it. There's a lot of pressure.
It's insane to me that was even brought up when we're talking about multi-millionaires playing hockey for a living. But anyways, I digress. And you're more appropriate to ask because you played in the league, and I guess technically you remember the Toronto Maple Leafs, although you don't know what it's like to play in this market, do you? You practice in this market.
I can't say that I know what it's like and what they deal with, but I will tell you that it's the NHL and there's pressure no matter where you are. I don't care if you're in a market that gets no fans and there's no pressure. There's always pressure. There's always general manager. This is something that you're not just thrown into, you're grown into it, right? Whether you played major, junior, you played in the NCAA, or you played junior A, whatever level you worked your way up into the NHL, there was pressure. There was a general manager. There was a head coach. You were always under the watchful eye. So you learn how to compartmentalize that side of your life. And that being said, yes, there's more pressure in Toronto, maybe on a day-to-day basis because of just general living, right? If you're going to the grocery store, if you're going anywhere, you're out at a bar, a restaurant, people are going to know who you are. But I feel like you've grown into this. You understand what comes with it. And that's every 2 weeks when you get your paycheck, that is the perk of doing what you do. And with along that comes a lot of expectation and pressure that you have to manage. And I feel like rightfully so, you lose again in that fashion. We look at their record over the last decade. This is what comes of it.
Yeah, fair enough. Our Super Chat charity partner this season is Sick Kids. Want to make sure that your question or comment gets on the show. Hit us up with a Super Chat. Proceeds from our Super Chat will go to Sick Kids, ranked the #1 research-intensive children's hospital in Canada and 3rd in the world. Don't worry, I haven't lost sight of the fact that we're here to react to what guys say in the room. And Craig Berube spoke earlier on. We'll get to all those quotes. Dave Pagnotta coming up at some point in time. He is at locker room cleanout day, so we'll get his reaction and where the Maple Leafs go moving forward. But was curious to get your thoughts on, I don't know if it was a sales pitch, but like the entire league feels bad for the Toronto Maple Leafs now. You got Paul Maurice, you got Brad Marchand, Matthew Tkachuk on Spit and Chicklets. Like, are these guys trying to get people to Florida? Are they genuinely concerned about these Maple Leafs players and the media being too harsh on them?
I don't know. Like, everyone's hard on everybody. Like, if you underperform, it's like the Rangers deal with it. They dealt with it all year. Like, every market you're in, I feel like at times the Oilers are criticized. Like, Habs. Like,
how about the New York Yankees or the LA Lakers? There's so many prime examples of franchises like the Dallas Cowboys.
They've won.
Yeah, look at the way the Dallas Cowboys are covered on a daily basis. I just think the same shit comes up every year, and it's like, yeah, it's our fault. It's Rosie's fault. Rosie chirps somebody. It's Rosie's fault. You know,
I know, it's so painful. And then to lay eggs in 5 and 7, be outscored 12-2, lose 6-1 in both those games, and just be again, I feel like we've talked about this so much, Nick. The fact of the matter is, like, if they were to lose 2-1 in overtime or 3-2 in a hard-fought game where it was just like blood, sweat, tears, and you just like, you felt the passion, that's where it's like you can walk away. You can be like, hey, the better team beat us. When you look at this and you're like, how is it so Jekyll and Hyde? Like, how do you get this time of year and just lay an egg like that? And they're like, you know, and Maurice makes those comments and almost like try to smooth the fan base over just because I guess we're trying to protect our own because we're part of the league.
Yeah.
Man, you got to be better. There's got to be a way. Where I look at the Washington Capitals left this season, I'm like, they put it on the line. They were in there every single game. They put it out there. They just couldn't get to a team that was deeper and just, you know, not better coach. I just think they had more depth and they had more energy. But you don't, like, as a Capitals fan, you like leave this season being like, hey, this was a great season. And Leafs fan, you leave here being like, how the fuck did it end like that? That's the way I feel.
The thing that pisses me off is, like, where is the accountability? Like, I understand why this question is being asked because we got to blame somebody. If it's not the refs, it's the coach, it's the players. Why not blame the media and the fans for being too harsh on these guys? And why can't somebody just step the fuck up and say, we were shit, we stunk up the joint, we got to be better? It's like as simple as that. And again, maybe there's no right answer. Is there a player that comes to mind that you played with in your career that just held everybody in check and accountable on a daily basis? Like, I think you look at some of the better players in the league, they just ooze that stuff, whether it's McDavid or McKinnon or somebody else.
I think the best leader I ever played with was Shea Weber. You know, Shea Weber was a guy that, not necessarily like a point getter, but he wore it on his sleeve every single game. And this guy played hard minutes and he like dragged you into the fight. And he'd be the first guy, if you were like drifting away or doing something, he'd grab you and like tell you, this is the way it is here. This is the way it's going to be. And this is the way you're going to play. And it was very easy to get behind that because of the way that he played every single game. And, you know, he had so many block shots and he would just do it all. And again, I know that's a simpler task to make because if you don't have your stuff, you're not finding the back of the net, it's easy to go out there and throw a body check and just block shots. But this was a guy that demanded like excellence in the room. And it wasn't necessarily results driven, it was effort driven. And I feel like that's something that's so important. And throughout my career, something I try to instill in my life now and in my kids' life is like our effort and our attitude. Because there's only two things we can really control when we get over the wall is effort and attitude. But if you can get that in a team setting, which is the ultimate goal here, you're going to get results if you can bring it every single night. And that's the problem for me is just the inconsistency in the lineup, in their performance that really stings here sitting here now.
William Nylander on Game 7. I don't believe he spoke after the game tonight. Just a shitty game. That's about it. He went on to say that he's thinking about going to the World Championships. I know it's a big tournament for the Europeans, and Willie wants to don the Swedish sweater. I get it. But I was going to get the Leafs are catching strays left and right, but I was genuinely curious to get sort of reaction to Leon Draisaitl on playing in a Canadian market. I don't know if you caught this, but he says it's a hockey country. It starts with hockey, ends with hockey in this country. I don't know if teams feel like they get under pressure with that. I'm not the right person to answer that, but we can handle it. Was that just like a direct shot? Because I think he's so right. Like, they're contrary to popular belief, there's other examples of strong hockey markets and strong media markets in this country. It's not just the Maple Leafs. Montreal, you got two different languages. You got Vancouver, you got Edmonton. They demand excellence. And when they don't get it, they're going to bitch about it. Yes.
Yeah. And they're hard on them. And again, I look at Paul Maurice's comments. What I did like about being so good at like the simple things. right? Like just knowing that you have that to fall back on is so important in these kind of moments. And again, we look at the Florida Panthers and they were so good and confident in those moments where, again, I feel like Toronto, you're just like, you're not sure what's going to come out, where Florida has that confidence to fall back on because they're so good at doing the little things all the time. They do them so well, which makes them a good team. And again, you look at the other team in the Eastern Conference Final, the Carolina Hurricanes. What would we say about them? They're simple, right? They're going to work hard. They're going to outwork you. They're not going to wow you by any means. And every year we look back at them and we're like, oh, the lack of offense that they can create. But like, at least they're in the mix. If you could create some non-negotiables in this lineup, which I think Craig Berube did a good job at times. But again, you look at Florida, just depth, right? What was it? 12 different scorers like in those two games at the end where, that's the difference in the series. Again, it's something we've talked about for so long, but Matthews, no show. Marner, no show. How do we keep doing this, Nick?
Dude, they got outplayed by Eetu Luostarinen and 48-year-old Brad Marchand. Like, it's pretty simple. I mean, if you want to look back in 15 years and look back at Game 7 against the Florida Panthers, why didn't the Leafs beat the mighty Florida Panthers? It's not difficult. It's not going to be about Scott Laughton. It's not going to be about Max Domi, two guys who are really good in that game. Probably not even about Joseph Woll. It's about four guys who make a shit ton of money, who decided, no, it's a Sunday. I don't work on Sundays, pretty much is my breakdown.
Yeah. It was tough to watch. I feel like that's a fair. And well, you don't get paid in the playoffs, right? Unless you win series, and they obviously didn't get paid. But it's tough to watch, man. Again, mistake. No. So like I think like for me, when you look at the team and the structure and the money that's tied up, where now you go, okay, what's Marner going to get, right? Like a huge payday. It's not like you're losing them for nothing. At least you're getting that cap space to go buy guys that are going to be better in the playoffs, right? Like at this point, let's not even have like you look at Carolina, where's their stars? They don't really have a like Aho, Svechnikov, like other than that, Jarvis. Comparatively to the Toronto Maple Leafs, that's nothing, right? But now you have depth. You have all the guys in the lineup that are going to help you. Look at Florida. Look at Brad Marchand, that pickup for a conditional second-round pick. He's leading the Florida Panthers in points in the playoffs, man. Like, this is crazy, and this is a difference that it's making for this team. So it's been tough to watch for me on my end.
My read on this whole thing, like moving forward, and we're going to do the whole post-mortem for like a month and a half, but you just need more dogs and you need more Craig Berube type players. Like, again, there's folks in this chat who think we're too harsh and I'm too harsh on one guy specifically who's about to be a UFA. He's the greatest ever, okay? He had an unbelievable season. Excellent player. I just don't think he fits what they're trying to do with this team. He'll go somewhere else. He'll have a good time. He'll put up the points. Maybe he's successful. Sometimes it's just time to move on, okay? That's just plain and simple the way I read that situation when it comes to Mitch Marner, and the proof will be in the pudding. But in general, like, my spectrum is like they just need more dogs. They need more guys who are going to play that system as opposed to the perimeter shit we saw in Game 7. That's it.
Yeah, you got to have dogs, man. I agree. And this time of year, it gets so exposed in a generation now where speed and skill and everything is so important. Like, what else can you do for me? Who else are you going to punch in the face? And what are you going to bring the fight and drag it into the mud? And again, you need guys that can finish, but you need those guys that are just going to create and make it hell game in, game out. And I feel like that's where they're really missing. And like, you can go down the road and look in Edmonton and look what they're getting from like Henrique and Brown and
exactly,
Kapanen gets an overtime winner. And like, where's that here? Right. I think Pacioretty was good. I think there was moments where Domi was really good, and it's just tough because there's just not enough depth, man. I feel like I would rather have a team full of like $3-4 million hard-nosed guys and maybe one or two up front that can finish, and the rest just like lay it on the line. At least you're in the mix every single night, and you're not just going to have no-show games.
At the Leafs Nation 401 on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Leafs Want to Take wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review, and also don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com. Just pulling up a couple articles that were put out there earlier today. Lots cooking over at the Leafs Nation. Maple Leafs fans made it clear they're tired of status quo after yet another Game 7 loss. Check that out. The end of the Shanahan era is near. That's another article. And reports suggest Mitch Marner appears likely to test free agency. Surprise, surprise. So go over to theleafsnation.com right now. Again, Dave Pagnotta, the fourth period coming up from a locker room cleanout day. But what do you remember specifically about these days? Just like, see you later and we'll see you in a couple months, or what?
Yeah, I guess so. It's kind of one of those things. You just like, there's usually a team party or you've already had a party and you're where you're at. Usually it's tougher if your season wasn't great, where you're at, your contract, you're not sure what to think. I always found it interesting. I think the conversations are so funny because usually players think they're better than they are. Majority of guys have this little bit of internal arrogance, and I think maybe that's why you become successful, is because you kind of have to. I think you can trim a little bit off the top, maybe 10, 20% of how good you think you are is where the team actually sees you. But I always thought these meetings were very important in the fact that, like, you hope there's just no gray area. You want it to be black and white. Like, hey, this is where you stand with this hockey team. If you want to change that, this is what needs to be done. And then the contract stuff's whatever. That's like your agent stuff's going to figure it out. But that being said, hopefully they have some real hard conversations. And I would assume with Craig Berube as the head coach, there's going to be no fluff. Like, there's going to be straight up, hey, this is what I think of you. This is where your game needs to get. And something that's going to be important for a lot of these guys, younger players, what are your expectations moving forward, where you're at? And for older guys, where your role is, if it's going to be part of the team, I think it can be important, but it's always a bittersweet day, right? Like, you're with these guys year round. And one thing you do understand is you're not going to be with the same guys next year. And all these friendships and bonds you make, it does end. There's a human side to it. But that being said, business is business, Nick.
Very true. Craig Berube on his first season in Toronto. I really like this team. I think this team is a very good team to get over that hump. We have to learn from this Game 7 here going forward, and we will learn. Oh, God. I don't know what they're going to say, and that's why I genuinely hate this day. It drives me insane to even cover it because they say absolutely nothing, but I don't need any more learning lessons. I'm tired of learning, Huts. I think I've graduated at this point.
Yeah, I think the message or the statement of learning just falls on deaf ears, right? Like, you get to a point where it's like, how many times are we gonna hear the same thing about we're gonna learn from this? At some point, it's about winning, and this team hasn't been able to win, right? What I wish I would remember the exact year, but I heard it was a little clip from Spittin' Chicklets about somebody had called in that Buffalo Sabres have more playoff series wins than the Leafs over the last X amount of years. And the Sabres have missed the playoffs for 14 years straight.
Oh, dude, we had Atlanta Thrashers fans chiming in. They're not
like, I was like, oh my God. It actually
time. It sucks getting dunked on. I'll just put it out there.
It does. I get it. But at some point there has to be, like, just making the playoffs is not enough. Making the playoffs or winning.
Well, man, that's the point I brought up. Like, me, Zach, and Rosie were on location at Greta Bar, and like before I think we went to air, I'm like, this to me, it's like funny where it's like you look at some teams, like their target is 16 wins.
Yeah.
And for the Leafs for a decade, it's like, let's get to 4 wins. Let's get to 8 wins. So I'm taking nothing away from this run. You get to 7 wins. You take the Stanley Cup champions to the brink. I think it's a step in the right direction. I'm not going to call it an A+, but I don't want to lose sight of the greater picture. Like, I'll be honest, I wasn't buddy partying after every fucking win in the playoffs. Like, I think there has to be that approach where it's like long-term. You're looking for 16 because glass half empty, half full Huts. They didn't even make it halfway there, man. Like, they're closer than last year, but they're not even sniffing Lord Stanley is what I'm saying.
So think about this run. I always try to put this in perspective of like how deep it was and long it was in battle. Like, and you got 7 wins.
I know.
You're not even didn't even get over half. Like, how hard it is to win in the Stanley Cup final. So that's something I think they need to address. Like, I just don't know if it's the way they're built. And it always feels like they've just been making perimeter changes, right? Like, there's just guys on the outside. It's the core, man. Like, you just need something that's going to change, because the fact of the matter is everything else has, like, coaches, GMs, personnel, and you've had these guys that are your stars that make the majority of your money just not being able to get it done. It's hard to say because they are world-class players, and I feel like there is always that worry of, like, as a fan and as a person, you move on from them and then they go win, and then we're sitting here like, holy cow. You look at the guys who've run through Buffalo that have gone on to win, and like, why can't it work here? You got to find the right formula. And I think that's the hardest part about playing the NHL, is getting that right formula to click at the right time.
At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Again, live reaction and analysis to locker room cleanout day. Here's the juice we want here in Toronto. John Tavares on his future. We're getting close to the time when decisions will need to be made, but right now I'm still focused on the end of the season. I had positive conversations today with Tree Living and Berube. He then added he's very optimistic about returning. And I think that's the consensus that JT will be back. Now, Mitch Marner asked if he wants to be a Maple Leaf next year. Maybe I'm reading too much into this already. I've always loved my time here, loved being here. And then he goes on to add, it's so fresh. It's tough to anything right now, future-wise. I was hoping to be playing hockey right now. I'll sit down with my wife and decide in the coming weeks. How do you look and how do you view that, Huts?
He doesn't love it. Like loved, plural, like past tense. He loved it here. I don't know. I'm not a grammar.
I don't know
guy.
if that's plural. It's not plural.
Yeah, past tense. There you go. Hey, give me a second, buddy. I stop pucks for a living. Okay, man. I'm not that sharp.
I can tell.
That being said, though, like, I don't know. It feels like the writing's on the wall in this one. It just seems like, I know you can't just recreate Mitch Marner, but to give up that kind of money and that kind of cap space to a guy that continually is non-existent in the playoffs, and maybe he finds a better fit somewhere, or maybe this is a miss, but it feels like something has to change. He seems like the main piece. I'm kind of excited to hear if Matthews, what exactly is going on behind the scenes.
Dude, he's not going to say anything. I'm telling you right now.
You'd think they would, just to like try to protect the situation or something. I don't know. I don't know if there's anything to gain or be rewarded from, like, exposing behind the curtain what's been going on. But for Marner, I just feel like at this point, man, like, it's not working. It's not here. And that money can be spent somewhere else. And I don't think you can recreate Mitch Marner, because I think he's a hell of a player. And I try to defend him. I have for a long time. I think he's a really good player. He's unbelievable. But just the way that the playoffs crank up, man, the game changes. It's not the same game as a regular season. It's a different animal. And he's just the guy that his game doesn't translate well to it, Nicky.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And I was sort of chuckling too, seeing some of the quotes from Craig Berube. I think he was asked, "You want to see Mitch back?" And he's like, "Yes." And then Tavares, 100%. Like, he's not going to say anything. Like, why would you say anything? But I think, to your point on Marner, the writing's on the wall. It has been for a long period of time. This is their first opportunity, they being the executives and the brain trust, to reimagine this roster and maybe supply the roster a bit more with Craig Berube type players. And I think they're going to do that. I think both parties understand, and surprise, surprise, even in the last 48 hours since they were eliminated on Sunday night, stories have come out about Mitch Marner and how he could test free agency and how maybe he's looking for a sweet change. And even last week on Thursday, following that dreadful Game 5, it's coincidental or not, story comes out that he's looking at free agency. Like, that's not a coincidence to me. I think this has been brewing for a long period of time. And honestly, it's disappointing, because you think homegrown talent, you think, could this guy be like a Leaf for life? And unfortunately, didn't work out that way. And sometimes in life, you got to make tough decisions and move on, turn the page. And that's exactly what I expect the Maple Leafs to do when it comes to Mitch Marner.
Yeah, and I don't blame him either, too, right? I know the pressure and the day-to-day life is a lot, but you can make a lot of money playing in a tax-friendly state. Going somewhere where you can actually live a normal life. There's actual value there.
Yeah.
I don't know how much he values that, but like, that is important for a lot of players, right? Now that he's got a kid, life changes, right? You're going to be in Toronto. It's a big hub to get around, to do stuff, where if you go playing a little bit of an off market, you have a little bit more of a normal life. You're making a ton of money still. There's a lot of benefit to it. But at the end of the day, like, creating a legacy in Toronto and trying to win a Stanley Cup and trying to be better is like number one, because that is something that would last forever. And again, he's always going to be a Toronto legend, in my opinion. I think he's one of the best players we've seen in numerous years. But the fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, there has to be tough decisions made, because this is a results-driven business, and they just don't get the results, and he hasn't been good enough when it matters.
And I think it's important to state, too, that the media asked him, I guess, point blank, if he wants to return, and he didn't say yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Apparently, he went to say he hasn't processed anything yet. Like, anybody who wants to return, they'd be like, yeah. Like, John Tavares was asked after the game the other night, "Do you want to come back?" He said yes. Like, the writing's on the wall. It's definitive. It's clear. I think this has been our expectation all season long. I don't really care about, the logistics of everything. Who's pissed, who what happened to lead to this situation. I think both parties comprehend it is best to move on. And you make all your analogies about having former girlfriends. I'll leave that to you, but it just, it's goodbye. Yeah. See you later.
I agree with you. I guess I just wonder, like, it seems so obvious where teams that I knew I was leaving. I remember in St. Louis after my second year, and I had a really good season, I knew I was leaving free agency. Like, I said, yeah, I want to come back. Like, I knew, like, we had already, like, my agent and I were like, hey, they're only offering this. I think my offer from St. Louis to stay was like 2 years, $2 million. That was the year I ended up getting. I ended up getting 3 years, closer to 3 in Buffalo, right? But I knew the deal was done. And when I was asked at media, I like lied right through my teeth because I was like, you're just trying to present well too, right? Like there's the business side of it, but there's also like the self-preservation. And I guess your point hits home with me, him being like, he didn't just say yes right away, where John Tavares might have no chance of staying in Toronto. But what is he going to say? He's not going to be like, I don't want to be a Leaf anymore. You're going to get absolutely butchered. Like, just, you got to deal with it. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out because it definitely seems like he's gone, Nick.
Yeah, I really couldn't care from that aspect. I'm not being a dick. Like, I just think it's time to move on. I think it's a tough hole to cover. Like, I don't know if you're going to find something short term that's going to equal Mitch Marner in the regular season. Like, where's the offense going to come from? Who's going to play with Matthews? Those are some major league questions moving forward. But ultimately, it's a guy. And again, people have their opinions on how we cover Mitch Marner, but it gets to the playoffs, he does nothing. So if you want to win the regular season, and if you're somebody who really puts aspirations of winning a President's Trophy, then I apologize. But if you're somebody who cares about winning a Stanley Cup, I think ultimately just this roster, this makeup, it's not a good fit for Mitch Marner. So that was sort of 1B and what I was looking for today is like the response from Marner, but I don't think he was going to give much. I don't think he did give much. The big question I had coming into the day, I don't know if you agree, and we sort of touched on it, like, the fuck's up with Austin Matthews? I don't think we're going to get an answer to it. If I recall last year locker room cleanout day, because if you recall, he missed a few games in round 1 against Boston. We didn't get an answer. It's been a theme with Austin Matthews, and a good majority of Leafs players outside of Nylander last year, we found out it was a migraine. They don't tell you anything, whereas some teams, they do their locker room cleanout day, or the GM or the president will speak, and they'll actually like submit a list of like what's been ailing guys. But what side do you land on in terms of what they should do?
I like the fact of knowing too. I guess maybe just because you always hear those stories of what guys actually deal with, and maybe it brings the human side into the game a bit too, and understanding like how much these guys do sacrifice, right? I know we are critical on them, and I know we're kind of babying them right now with the way that we're not allowed to say
we're too hard on them. We're too hard.
I know, but I mean, like, it's nice to know, man. It's nice to still know that it's hockey, right? It's nice to know that it's like you sacrifice so much to try to win, right? I'm not saying they didn't try to win. Yes, they underperformed, but like the effort and like what these guys deal with is always so wild to me. And the Bergeron one is for me that I really, really thought was wild. Remember when he had like he had everything going on with him in those playoffs. So I always find it interesting because behind the scenes, these guys deal with so much. And I've been part of it where you watch guys getting shot up before games, or, you know, they're walking around before the game, tying their skates with an IV bag hooked up to them and getting ready to play and sacrifice what they can. And that's money aside. That's whatever. That's just like the human nature in them of wanting to try to win. So it'd be nice to know exactly what goes on. But to the point about Marner, you said, I just want to circle back. And I was just thinking in my head about the Eastern Conference teams in regular season, like Aho at 74 points, Jarvis 67, Marty Necas came there over, like he's gone. Svechnikov 48 points for Carolina. This is a team that's in the Eastern Conference final. So when you go back to like points, does it even matter? Like, it doesn't matter if you can't play playoff hockey, because like regular season, man, just get a chip in a chair. Like the Panthers didn't run away with anything. Reinhart had 81 points. Matthew Tkachuk was hurt most of the year. Verhaeghe had 53 points. Like, those points are nothing, like, comparatively to what the Toronto Maple Leafs produced in the regular season. So I would rather have a less productive regular season, but a team that's meat and potatoes come playoff time, Nicky.
Yeah, 1,000%. And I think that'll be discussed a lot over the next couple months leading up to free agency, like which direction, which route the Maple Leafs elect to go. We got a couple super chats to get to here in support of Sick Kids. Michael submitting both of them. Main issues are these core five are too nice and too proper. They're the mummy boys from private play. Cricket's too soft. Very run-on sense. I can't even read this. They keep on losing in 9 years. It is not fair to blame on fans. If this is their case, run it back. And fans just all shut up next 2 years. Let's see how they win. John Gallagher, thank you so much for the super chat. Nick not being salty, but what was wrong with Matthews against Columbus, against Montreal, against Elway? I get it. I think that's fair criticism too. But honestly, from my perspective, and who knows what's going on behind the scenes, Huts, like, if I'm Matthews, do I not want what's going on out there? Like, for me, it would eat away at me every day to see the ridicule and the hatred and the backlash. Like, what's wrong with this guy? And maybe he works with the PR staff and they come to the deliberation that maybe it's not in the best interest to release the information. But if I'm the player, I want the info out there so people, I don't want people to feel bad for me, but they understand, comprehend what I'm dealing with. Like, he took a lot of strays, a lot of heat this year. I'd want that information out there, no?
Yeah, I agree. So I think it is important to the transparency there. Like, at times you need to keep things private, but it's almost like just to protect him a little bit too, right? Like, he takes so much BS and he still is a good player, but it seems like obviously something's going on. I remember one time I got a concussion in Buffalo and I had something wrong. I had like a vision thing. I was a little bit off. I had like whiplash and our goalie coach caught on to it. I went to see a guy and then I talked about it after the season because they told me to, because I had a little bit of and then everyone thought I was like blind. I needed LASIK. It was all this. So I there's always that side of it too. Sometimes it's better, less is more. So I just feel like in this case, it's been so long and the magnitude of what's going on with Matthews has been so huge. So I feel for him. And I would like to know, I guess, selfishly, so we can sit here and be like, man, we were right. He is dealing with something going on. It seems like something in his core or back or something. Just his rotation is so bad. He can't release pucks like he normally can. And when you're a guy that scores from everywhere, you just don't see it out of him. And it's tough to watch.
Well, hey, you're the goalie. You're the former goalie. Again, I'm always careful to speculate on injuries. Who knows what the hell is going on? But my read on this thing throughout the season, you don't go from scoring 69 goals and scoring 3 goals on 3 shots every 2 games to like 1 goal on 8 shots and hitting the glass behind the goalie 32 times a night. Like, something's cooking there, right? Had to be.
For sure. Something is off. And you don't just fall off the wagon, right? And a term that I always stick with, and someone used to say to me all the time, you don't lose talent overnight, right? He didn't just like forget how to score. It's just the fact something's going on. Yes, time and space goes away. Yes, there's chances, but he had so many looks where he couldn't even finish. And even his goal in, like, when you could say his goal in game 6, like, it wasn't a good goal. Like,
he muffed it.
Like, it went through Bobrovsky. Like, that's a goal that can't go in. Like, that was a horrible goal, right? So it's not like he wowed you. And this is a guy that I've seen firsthand. I faced, you know, I played 10 years in the NHL. I faced every best player, and he was one of them. He was a guy that when he had the puck on a stick, you were like concerned at all times in the offensive zone that he could beat you from anywhere. And I think that threat was gone. It wasn't just the playoffs, though, Nick. This was something that we saw for a big duration of time, right? So we can't just say it was just the playoffs and the tighter checking. Something that he disappeared a lot from what we've seen in years past.
Hutsy, people are pissed. Would you even entertain the idea of putting Marner on the trade block, or is that a no-go? It's a no-go for me. Easy no-go.
Yeah, but so what do you get in return, right? If you can, like, you're going to lose him anyway.
I don't know. I've seen everybody propose these deals with Los Angeles and Quinton Byfield. Like, he is not Austin Matthews. Good player. He can't clear a puck, clearly, but
yeah. I know. I don't know if you can trade him. I don't know. That's a crazy move, right? This is a guy that produces the most goals 5-on-5 in the
he's the best goal scorer on the planet, plain and simple.
Yeah. I don't know. I think trading him's crazy. I don't know. I just, how do you ever recover from that one? The Marner one's easy for me. Even if you lose him for nothing, at least you're getting that cap space to do something that's going to help you be a better playoff team. Yes. I think you could look back maybe at this. If he did block that Rantanen trade, is going to sting because you could have moved them and you could have had Rantanen. But that being said, it's his right, and that's the way that the league works, right? If you have a no trade clause and you can do whatever you want, and you need to protect the players too, because trust me, in this business, the players fall behind quickly because the owners are the ones that make the real money in the grand scheme of things. But you can't trade Matthews, in my opinion.
Yeah, and J-Rock writes in too. Good point. He would have to waive his no movement clause, but considering what this guy's been through in this market, I think it's a pretty simple ask. And to your point about Marner, that's the one thing I won't rip him for, and people rip him for some reason, is that he was approached at the trade deadline. You're in a cup run, a playoff run, and he was approached, and who knows, what actually happened behind the scenes, but I don't fault the player. Again, this is back to the previous administration. Oh, you want a full no trade clause? You got it. You want $10.93 million per season? You got it. It's just everything was given to these guys, and he exercised his right, plain and simple. I had no issue with that. And the bigger problem to me is, like, how were they able to negotiate a contract with Mikko Rantanen? And it was a 12-team no trade list, and he's the same echelon ilk type player. I don't, whatever way you want to compare it to Mitch Marner, and we're sitting here in all these Maple Leafs, Marner, Matthews, Nylander, Tavares, full no trades. You're going nowhere unless you want to. And then Rantanen's a guy with a 12 team, and he's probably he is in the same conversation.
Yeah, it's crazy to think, and what happened with Rantanen too. The fact he goes to Carolina, it doesn't fit. He's kind of sour, and then he gets moved on. And now you're looking at a guy, that potential Conn Smythe winner. If it ended today, he probably wins the Conn Smythe, and how good he's played, and he's been that adjustment. And I think that's something that Leafs fans feel and are scared of, is the fact that if you do move on from one of these guys and they go somewhere and they're just like in fuego immediately and they light it up and they win a cup, and we're going to be sitting here being like, where was that with us? Right. But something does have to change. And I do think that sometimes growing up in where you were drafted, where you've come, where you were anointed the next one, is hard. It's nice to go somewhere clean and have a clean slate. It's very important. I've seen that numerous times throughout my career, where guys, where they were drafted, you thought they were going to be really good, and they just go to a different setting and it fits and it clicks, and it could be good for everybody, all parties involved, Nick.
In support of Sick Kids, Tammy writes in, appreciate the super chat. Matthews owes it to the fans and paying once to disclose his injury. He'll have the whole summer off, so there's no point in keeping it secret since he's not playing hockey during that time. Well, Tammy, I can tell you, Auston Matthews, speaking to the media right now, says it was a very tough season physically, but that he got injured in training camp. Doesn't want to say what it is specifically. So we're not going to find out.
Shocker. But yeah, like, I feel like it's coached, like they probably go to him and tell him not to say it and not to spark where it's at. It would be nice to know, though, Nick.
He says, I'm confident with some time off, I'll be back 100% next season. Asked if his injury affected his shot, he said his ailments affected a lot of things. So he's not going to say anything. Like, this day is a colossal waste of time. Yeah. I can't stand it. I can't stand locker room cleanout day.
Well, when you don't get anything out of it, right? Like, I feel like it's just fluff too. And even like we said earlier before we jumped on, Vic and I and you, and just talking about, like, when Berube was asked if he wanted to keep Marner, like, what is he going to say?
Yeah,
no, I want to get rid of him, ship him out of here. Like, he's not going to fray that relationship. The real conversations are the ones that go on face to face and behind closed doors. And they're not going to show behind the curtain. And obviously Matthews was hurt. This isn't surprising that he was hurt. Like, we know he's hurt. It'd just be nice to know.
He had nothing new came out of today from the Matthews camp. We all knew he was hurt. Yeah. Maybe he confirmed it, but that's it. Like,
I don't think we even need confirmation on that. Like, we knew something was up. You don't just turn that switch and become the different player.
The thing that gets me is, like, I'm trying to put myself in the perspective of Auston Matthews. I'm getting so much heat and I'm pissed off. I would be pissed off about it. Like, you guys don't know what's going on with me. Wouldn't I want that out there?
Yeah.
Like, hey, maybe again, and not to want people to feel bad for me, but like, people understand more why I no-showed. And granted, he has no-showed even when he was 100% that we think. So it's just really interesting, the PR battle sometimes, and the way things are handled PR wise in this market compared to other markets where, again, they submit a full list. Like, for example, Chris Tanev brought up that he had a sternum injury earlier this season. He was fine bringing up his injury, but Auston Matthews can't do it for some reason.
Is it because it's him? Because he's like the guy here. They've been
but long. Like, Hutz, what are the pros and cons of putting out there what he's dealt with? It's not like he's playing a game tomorrow or in a month.
I know, I agree. I just think the humanizing of him helps him. I think, like, you're protecting your player, and you're like, from this scrutiny, from whatever. Then I think if you actually knew what was going on with him, whenever I hear the injuries of what guys deal with, you're always like flabbergasted, right? You're like, wow, what a warrior, what a guy. Like, he dealt with this since training camp. He went to Germany, he did all this stuff, and all he wanted to do was bleed blue and try to win and help this team win. But again, I just don't know. I just don't see the benefit of it, in my opinion. I don't think it hurts anybody in the sense of, he's got a full season. And I think, like the super chat said, it's not like he's got to go play tomorrow and someone's going to expose him. This is something that would benefit him and everybody involved, in my opinion.
It's bizarre. That's probably the only way I would break it down. It's bizarre. Like, I don't see, even from a PR standpoint, I have a bit of background in PR. I don't see the negative aspect. I think the pros outweigh the cons in terms of putting this information out, putting everybody at ease. Now the questions will just continue into the offseason. What the hell was he dealing with? And again, we're piggybacking off last season where he wasn't healthy to finish the regular season. And it's like, I don't know. I just think you want to get ahead of it. And it's really, really weird to me that nobody will say anything on what the hell was ailing this guy who scored 69 goals last season, gets to this season, and all he did was just miss the net all year. It was really, really weird. It just shows you how talented he is. Still finishes with 30 plus goals or whatever it was, and reminds me of a couple of years ago with the bummed wrist. Like, he's just so good. But yeah, it's bizarre. It's really weird to me.
And I do think he is a different kind of goal scorer too, right? When we talk about Ovi, and like he's like so one-dimensional, right? Like, he just has the bomb. He kind of beats you with the bomb, and where Matthews is like so dynamic, and so when something is off, it has like more of a dramatic effect on his game, where he can't just he doesn't just stand in one spot and hit a one-timer. So for him, the injury, but again, man, I just feel like it'd be
Mr.
nice.
P-Mail Bacon writes in, the flip side is if he says he's hurt, we're talking about him being injury prone. I get it. But no, we know he's hurt. Like,
yeah, but even if he is injury prone, it doesn't change anything. If he says it or he doesn't says it, he's still like, so if he does come out and say like, hey, this is what's gone on, and then we're like, oh, fuck, Matthew was injured again. But not saying it or saying it, we know he was injured. Like, this isn't some like new discovery. We're not like shocked right now, taken back that he's injured. The fact is, we know that he dealt with injuries, and but then like, I still look back to last year, chasing 70 goals wasn't good. We set him up like to fail. Like, he hurt his back because they're trying to go after it. And then this year, like, would they have been better off just to shut him down for 2 months, to like totally get him away from it and like heal him? Because now you have this like player that's buzzing at like a lower percentage of his game. I don't know what value you want to put on that, 75%. And it's just not effective when they needed it most.
At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Again, Dave Pagnotta, the fourth period down at Locker Room Cleanout Day. He'll join us at some point in time. We're going to an extended edition today. Producer Vic, let's get to the crispy hot take of the day and, piggyback off what Producer Vic has to say today. It's time now for the crispy hot take of the day, presented by the Ninja Crispy 4-in-1 portable glass air fryer.
Meet the first of its kind. The Ninja Crispy Portable Cooking System. The power of a full-sized air fryer in the palm of your hand. So you can cook big or small batches. Just prep it, crisp it, serve it, and store it all in one.
It is an all-in-one system. It includes 4-quart, 6-cup Tupperware glass containers and 2 storage lids. The Ninja Crispy is thermal shock resistant and can go from frozen to crispy in minutes. With the Crispy Power Pod, you get the power of a full-size air fryer in the palm of your hands. The 4-quart container fits 4 pounds of chicken or veggies. Cook a personal-sized meal in 7 minutes in the 6-cup container. Max crisp, bake, air fry, and recrisp with the Ninja Crispy. You can prep, cook, and store anything from crispy favorites to one-dish meals. Visit their website in the link in the show description. And stay tuned for your chance to win a free Ninja Crispy. You ready for this one today, Huts?
I guess so. Let's find out, baby.
So this is Producer Vic's first hot take following that tough loss here to the Florida Panthers. So here goes nothing. The Leafs will sign 2 of Sam Bennett, Brad Marchand, and Aaron Ekblad this summer.
Ooh, baby. I don't mind that. I just think, like, where's that money going to come from for Bennett? I just don't want to overpay for Bennett because I feel like his stock is so high. You need like the young Sam Bennett signing, but I do like Ekblad. I feel like that would be an insane addition. Marchand's got a lot of tread on his tires, but imagine him in a Leafs jersey. I hope he's right. I think 1 of 3 would be good. I just don't want to overpay for Sam Bennett. That's my concern. And I know you can't just recreate it, but I feel like he's going to cash in, and then you're going to be looking at that Sam Bennett deal years from now being like, man, this Sam Bennett deal is killing our team.
Yeah, I hate that too. And we've seen so many examples. The one that comes to mind right away is David Clarkson, where they got horny. They're like, David Clarkson, let's get him on this team. Any means necessary. They sign him. He was god-awful as a Toronto Maple Leaf. And that was a crispier hot take than Justin Bieber's jacket in Game 7 there. But I don't know. Like, I think it's a unique way to look at things. The Marchand thing, I don't know. I think he plays the media like a fiddle, and he's a great player. I just don't know if Toronto's going to be the fit. I think they'll probably talk to him. I just don't know how much I believe, and maybe he leads on a bit more and he knows exactly what he's doing. I think they'll sniff around on Sam Bennett. I've heard that for the last couple months. I just, at this point, my opinion has changed in the last month from the Sam Bennett perspective. A, why would he want to come to Toronto when he's in Florida? And B, like, how do you not re-sign with a team that you might go to a 3rd straight Stanley Cup with? You might repeat as Stanley Cup champions. Like, it to me, for Bennett, it's trending more towards Bennett re-signing in Florida. But if he does get to July 1, I think at the very least they'll talk. Aaron Ekblad, for me, of the 3, I don't want to say high possibility, but I think there's a legit possibility they sign Aaron Ekblad. I think he's a really good fit, shoots right, plays heavy, the Berube style. Like he's the one it makes the most sense to me of those three guys.
Yeah, then you look at that back end and you're like, wow, like this is a legit back end, like big body. He's going to take up space. And again, I'm with you there. I feel like sometimes we're in this insulated bubble of like the Toronto Maple Leafs and we think it's the end all be all and everybody wants to be a Leaf and everybody wants to win, but it's not the case. There's a lot of guys that don't want to play here, even if you are a local guy and the pressure. And there's a way of life that goes with being in Florida and living in that market and having a pool in your backyard. And so there's pros and cons to both, right? I truly feel that winning and being in that big market is great, but this is a guy who's won it and he's wanted to win. You look at John Tavares, wanted to come home and he wanted to try to win, but it comes at a cost, right? Like it changes who you are and there's a lot that is expected of you. And for Sam Bennett to come here on a huge payday, the amount of money he loses for a guy who this is his payday, right? It's coming July 1st. He's going to make the most money he's ever made. I don't know. It's going to be a tough sell for me, but I do like Ekblad. And I think Marchand, again, like if you're going to overpay Brad Marchand, like how much tread does he have left on his tires? He's just had a ton of surgeries. What is he going to be like postseason run here? Like I'm sure he's dealing with stuff just like everybody else is there.
Because you got to think John Tavares is coming back and then you're going to sign like a 37-year-old Brad Marchand.
And you're so old then, like
that's your third line then. You're going to have JT with Marchand. I guess JT's still your 2C until he shows he can't be your 2C anymore. But effectively, you could have a line next year's playoffs with JT and Marchand on it. Like it would concern me because I think you're right. Marchand's the type of guy he would probably come here, but he'd want the coin. Like that was the big story in Boston, right?
He would have just stayed in Boston if he didn't care about that. If he just cared about playing, he wants to play, but he wants to get paid and he's trying to hold his worth. And then you got a guy like Tanev who's had a great year and he's stayed healthy for the most part. But again, he's another year older, right? Like you need some young energy and you need some guys where I'd be looking for the next like Sam Bennett style of player, like someone who's kind of flying under the radar a little bit, but has that physicality in his game. And maybe you can get a little bit of a quick hit. Yes, I think they struck gold when they got Sam Bennett out of Calgary and he played well and he's fit and he's been a difference maker, but get 3 or 4 younger guys that are like cheap money that you can like move in and out of the lineup that are more nail guns. And like Holmberg, like get rid of Holmberg because I don't really think his game is going to translate in the playoffs. Yes, I don't think he was horrible, but just little guys with a little more bite. When I look at like Ridley Gregg in Ottawa, I think that's a good fit. I think he's a good player. I think he's a guy that like plays hard and makes it tough on teams. And I thought in the playoffs he was good. Those are the kind of players I would start to look for now because the skill, you have the best skilled player in the world, arguably, like Mitch Marner with talent and edge work and skating. In playoffs, he's like irrelevant. Like, so why does it go get some meat and potato guys, in my opinion, for cheap money?
Some dogs, some absolute
you need dogs,
like,
baby.
Even like Nick Cousins. I know he didn't have a great year, but guys like that. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Anthony Stolarz confirms he did sustain a concussion and was pretty clear that it came from the Bennett collision and not the puck off the helmet earlier in the period. That was also unfortunate too. Curious to get your opinion as the former goalie, how you would rate Woll's play after the Stolarz injury.
I think like inconsistent would be like the easiest way. You know, I think at times he wasn't helped out. You know, I thought he played very, very good in game 4 and took the loss. And then the 6-1 games, there's not many times you can sit and really be totally happy with a 6-1 game. You have to make saves, right? You're paid to make saves. And even in game 7, when the shots were 7-0 to start for Florida, he was solid. Right. And then Bobrovsky makes big saves. He makes timely ones and it changes the outcome of the game. And I think for Joseph Woll, that would be like the outlook on the game for me is like, it's not how many you make, it's when you make them. And I thought at times he was a little bit leaky and just needed a big save here or there to really calm this team. And then from there, I feel like it started to like just snowball in the wrong direction. You could see them start to self-destruct. Does that make sense? Could you not feel it?
Yeah.
Like even as a fan or someone watching, it's like, oh, that one went in and you're like, oh, we're done. Like you just like feel it come out of the game where a big save here or there might've been the difference.
Yeah, but it's weird, like confidence-wise, it changes year to year because in recent seasons, Joseph Woll goes in there and Leafs Nation feels so damn good, but maybe you're comparing him to an Ilya Samsonov. It just seemed like that up and down type year for Woll where every time Stolarz was in there, I could probably count on one hand how many shitty goals, from my eyes at least, Woll or Stolarz surrendered this season. Where Woll, there was just some shots that just can't go in when you're trying to beat a Florida Panthers team, unfortunately. But I will defend the goaltenders because I think it's hard to win when you're getting pounded 6-1 twice in the last 3 games of a series. Like, they can't score when the season's on the line. I mean, it's pretty abundantly clear here.
Yeah, 100%. Even in game 4, that's easily a game where they should have won the game. Like, you got to capitalize, at least get to overtime, at least do something that's going to help your team out. So it does feel that way. And again, I that's a great comparison, in my opinion. The fact that in years past, when we looked at Joseph Woll's performance, we were comparing it to Ilya Samsonov, who was, at times shit, like giving up bad goals here and there. But Anthony Stolar's injury is one that I would have loved to see what we would have got from him if he could have stayed healthy the whole time.
Meantime, the following interview is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers. Get custom ring building, delivered in less than 4 weeks with the Charm Masterpiece program and an unbeatable pricing policy. Charm Diamond Centers is proudly Canadian-owned and operated since 1972 with more than 85 locations across the country through Charm and their sister brands. For more information, go to charmdiamondcenters.com as we go down to the Leafs practice facility in Etobicoke and are joined by Dave Pagnotta of the fourth period from Locker Room Cleanout Day. How's it going, Dave?
Not bad, boys. It's still going on. Lars just spoke a few moments ago. I don't know who came up afterwards, but it's still going on behind me.
Dave, what are some of your major takeaways from today so far?
A lot of honest disappointment. Obviously everybody's kind of ticked off and pissed off about what happened. I get that. But guys seem to be pretty genuine in believing that this group was significantly different, which I believe it was. But they just, same outcome, same result is going to result into the same kind of commentary, year after year. But they do like the group. They say it's improved. And, go into the summer. And one of the things Craig Berube said was to remember this loss. Utilize that this offseason. Utilize this summer when you spend time with your family, when you're back in the gym, when you go back on the ice. Remember this feeling and how shitty it really is. And to use that as motivation to get better for next year. He said, you're going to play through pain. You got to play through the hard times. That's what it takes to win. Utilize that, harness that over the summer to make you a better player next season, to make this a better team next season, whatever the makeup is going to be.
Yeah, Dave, obviously, you hear that all the time, right? Trying to find motivation or things to push you through. And that's part of being a professional athlete. But, you were boots on the ground game 7. What was that experience like? Sitting here, I watched it through a TV and it was gut wrenching. What was it like front hand?
Diarrhea fart. That's what it was.
Yeah. Yeah, it turned into that. I mean, the first 10 minutes were friggin' brutal if you're watching the Leafs team. They rebounded in the second half of that period. They woke up and remembered that there's more hockey to play and there's another side of the ice to play it at. So they figured that out. But then the second period rolled around and they just shit the bed again. And, one of the things Berube said today was just emphasizing their structure. And they got away from said structure in that second period, and that allowed for a couple mental lapses, and that allowed Florida to rebound. The problem is they never got back onto that. You're going to get the bounces, and they're not always going to go your way, and this, that, and the other. So I get that. But, I mean, after that second, I want to say the second goal, that's when life just went totally out of the building. Normally we see this fan base, they go down 1, and then it gets quiet. After that first goal by Jones, the crowd actually rebounded. Like the crowd got going. They started chanting, "Go Leafs, go!" They started, getting the backs of their players, which, let's be honest, is a rarity that we see in this market. After a goal, usually everyone just kind of sulks and sits down and goes to order another beer or another T-bone or whatever. But now we saw that, and I was like, okay, shit, this is interesting. Now we're seeing the fans kind of get into it. Can the players harness it? And then it was a bad bounce, and they broke down, and Florida made it 2-0, and then the fans were like, all right, that's enough. Time to order that steak. So, it's shitty that that's the narrative right now. But then everything just fell apart from the fan base to what happened on the ice that led to the fan base falling apart. It was bad, and again, the big boys didn't step up when they needed them.
I'll have I myself did a lot of soul searching till Sunday or since Sunday. And yeah, we're way too harsh on these guys, man. They can't live up to the expectation because the media is just too harsh on them. But how did you interpret? Go ahead.
No, that's one of the things that we've been asking a lot back there in the room. was the quote, the pressure of this market and the fan pressure and the us talking about it, and the post-game shows, the pre-game shows, the newspapers, the websites, the this, that, and the other.
The YouTube shows.
The YouTube, right. And the guys are like, look, there's pressure everywhere. Like, I don't think first of all, the guys hear this shit all the time. The whole blocking out the stuff, that doesn't exist. They may say that, but it doesn't happen. The guys read the papers, they see the tweets, they see this. It's up to them to kind of block out that noise, but they always see it. So the pressure and the public scrutiny and this, that, and the other, that's normal. That's everywhere. Tanev said, he's like, look, I played 14 and a half of my 15 years in the NHL so far in Canada. There's pressure everywhere. So that can't be an excuse for this group. And honestly, that's the right response with respect to that narrative.
How did you interpret what Mitch Marner said today? I know he used past tense, saying he loved his time in Toronto.
Well, so yeah, I know everyone's blowing that up. He said, "I've always loved my time in Toronto." That's the exact quote. So let's not get too ahead of it just yet.
He's done though, right? He's leaving.
I still think that he's probably, I don't know if I wouldn't say 100% leaving, but I would say I would put some money down in my belief. This is just me, that he's going to hit July 1. And then figure out what the options are at that point. He can still stay here. He can pull it. Stamkos did it. Stayed in Tampa after exploring the market. He could still stay. But I anticipate him testing free agency. But he's always said he loved it here. He's always loved playing here. Genuinely, the dude loves playing here. He loves being a part of this. He wants to be one of the best of all time. I personally don't think it's going to be in the cards, because I do think not only is he going to test, he's going to go somewhere else. But things can change. He did say that he's going to spend the next couple of weeks to kind of regroup, talk to his wife, talk to his family to decide what the next steps are going to be, talk to his agent, and then go from there.
No, it's fair. And again, I'm not boots on the ground like you are, but even the other thing that caught my eye about what Marner said, like you guys asked him bluntly, like, do you want to return to Toronto? He didn't say yes. Where, for example, John Tavares today, he said yes profoundly. And so I truly feel the writing's on the wall, and I think both parties, Marner and the Leafs, understand it's divorce time. Sadly, file the papers.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's what happens. Yeah, Tavares did say that he was quote very optimistic that he's going to get a deal done and be back here. He spoke to Tree today. He spoke to Berube again. They had positive conversations. That's going to probably get figured out in the not too distant future, is my guess. And when you hear 91 saying that he believes that he's going to stick around, probably a good chance of that happening. Mitch deflected a lot when it came to anything point blank and direct. He kept saying that he's still disappointed, he's still processing and all that, which is a good indicator that he's going to weigh all his options. But to say that in front of this group right now, I get why he doesn't want to be as point blank as he probably would like to be. But I still think the outcome's the outcome.
And I think deflecting this time of year, I remember interviews, Dave, where I'd be like, oh yeah, for sure, I want to be here again. I knew I was gone. You have to say it.
Yeah, right.
It's part of the business, but we're not going to let you deflect here. There's been talk like, would you trade Austin Matthews, or what is subs like? What's a big change you can do to the Toronto Maple Leafs to make this team better?
I wouldn't trade Austin Matthews. I would keep him along. Talk about his injury later. I'm not using that as an excuse. But I keep him. Honestly, I look to trade Morgan Riley personally. Move that money out to use elsewhere. Look, if I can keep John Tavares at $4 million, which I think it'll be higher than that, but $4 or $5 million in that range, I would do that. And then I go out and try to be creative, try to look to see what options are out there. I wrote about this yesterday about potential options that may be available. Are there reclamation projects out there that fit what you need? They need power forwards. They need guys that fit the top six. Matthew Knies is getting there, but they need those jam guys that can play and keep up in the top six. Assuming Knies is, and he's going to sign, by the way, but assuming he sticks around, and sticks around in terms of playing that at that level and increasing it, then you go out there and you have to get at least one more legit guy in your top six that can throw the body around, keep up pace of play, and score. So, I mentioned guys like Chris Kreider in New York. The Rangers are trying to clear out cap space. Do you still believe he can be a 30-goal guy on a good team with a couple years left on his contract at $6.5 million? If you do, then you pursue that. Everyone keeps linking Lawson Krause to this team. He had a shit year this year, had 18 points. Like, that's not top six material, but he's a big body. If he gets another opportunity, is that the way to go? I would scour the league to try to find where that's going, because from a free agent perspective, I mean, yeah, I would go after Sam Bennett in a heartbeat. I think he stays in Florida. So assuming that option is out, is Brock Nelson somebody you want to pursue? He's older, so does that fit your narrative? Is it Brock Besser, who would provide the goal scoring, certainly, and can't keep up in the pace of play? He's played in the shitstorm of media market that comes with it. Is that who you pursue? Would he consider going here? I think the options from a free agent side of things are a little bit limited. I wouldn't be shocked if Toronto explores their options in the trade market. And they may clear out a few more bodies too. I heard going into today, both the futures of Calle Yarncrook and David Kampf are up in the air right now.
That's fair enough. I mean, those guys really contribute much to finish off, especially in the Stanley Cup playoffs. But curious to get your opinion on the way Matthews handled the media today, pretty much confirming he got hurt in training camp. But again, they will not disclose what the hell's going on here. And we had this debate earlier on that I think there's way more pros for us than there is cons as to, putting it out there. Why don't you think they'll put it out there, and how do you think they've handled this situation?
He doesn't want to. He was point blank about that. He said, I don't want to specify. It's my right to not specify. So he doesn't want to do that. And I get it. He also acknowledged, I think a couple of questions later, he kind of said, it's possible the other team can use that against me. Like keep poking at it. Like if it's a back injury, if it's a knee injury, if it's a shoulder injury, you're going to grind a little bit harder against those guys going into the boards. I mean, I would. Like, if I knew a guy was hurt, I would try to hurt him a little bit more.
But Dave, they don't play for another 6 months. Like, it doesn't make sense to me, man.
Yeah, I know why he wouldn't want to disclose it now. Again, I don't have that answer. All I can relay is that he says he just doesn't want to disclose it. Okay. He says he doesn't need surgery. He did acknowledge that, but he did say all season was a roller coaster ride for him, up and down with the injury that's been nagging him. He anticipates a full offseason of recovery, being 100% going into next season. I got nothing else. I got to take him for his word on all of that. So, you kind of hope that that's the case. But 100% Austin Matthews, does that mean continuing being that 200-foot guy who can score 60 goals? You better hope that's the case. And you better hope that whoever you bring in, whether Mitch stays or goes, or Tavares stays or goes, whoever else comes into this nucleus can help push this team forward. They need, they talked about last time. Treliving hasn't talked. He hasn't spoken yet. And neither is Shanahan, and we don't know what the future is there. But what they talked about last cleanout management was bringing intangibles and extra pieces to this club. They did that. They did that in the summer. They did that during the season. You got to bring that into the top six. And if you don't have those intangible pieces, that jam in that top six with this skill set, it's going to be the same outcome all over again. And I'll be talking about this shit again next May.
Yeah, Dave. And obviously we've beat a dead horse with this core four and what's gone on. And we've seen coaching changes. We've seen perimeter player changes. We've said general manager changes. Is it Shanahan now? Is he the guy that this axe falls on when we look at Treliving these are players that he was given. He's gone and made some additions that have helped. Do you think it's time where Shanahan is the odd man out here?
It would make sense. Since Tree came in, he's handled all the roster decisions. We know Shanny in the past has factored in, and he's contributed to some of the discussions, Mitch's contract and a few others and whatnot. But since Treliving came in, it's been him. Shanny hasn't really touched anything unless he's been asked to help try to lure a free agent or something like that. But Shanahan hasn't really had his tentacles on any of this roster. It's going back to when Treliving was brought in. I'm not saying he shouldn't return. I'm not saying he should. That's just the reality of the situation right now. The roster construction is up to Brad Treliving and his staff. Whether Shanny's here or not, it's not going to affect what they do this offseason in terms of their pursuit. So, is it going to be, if he does stick around, is it focusing more on the business element? Is it focusing more on the outside off ice stuff that surrounds this team? Probably. But right now it's all on Tree, and it's all on him to fix this group and to get them going. So can you bring in the right pieces that complement Austin? Can you bring in the right pieces that will complement Willie? Those are your top guys. And if you are looking at something bold outside of free agency, again, I go back to, I like Morgan Riley as a person. Never had any issues with him, so it's nothing to do with that. I just think from a hockey perspective, you move him out, you bring somebody else on that back end, a little less money, and you use that extra money to beef up your top six.
Hey, and surprise, surprise, no movement clause, full no movement clause. I think the last 2 years, you got a modified 10 team for Morgan Riley because they gave everybody no movement clauses in this market.
And he was asked, I don't know, it might have been Kevin McGran. I'm not sure exactly who asked him that point blank. It said, you control your fate. If you want to go, you could waive your no movement clause. Would you consider it? He paused a little bit and then just says, I'm not even focused on that right now. I'm still focused on the end of the season. So I don't know. I don't know if the pause is something to read into, but
we read into everything. Past tense, plural. We got all avenues covered on this show. Dave, bang up job. You're looking great as well, buddy. Killing it. So appreciate your time today, man.
Yeah. All right. See you, boys.
Thanks,
Take
Dave.
care. That is the fourth period's Dave Pagnotta, also of SiriusXM NHL Network Radio host. A show from time to time, breaking it down from locker room cleanout day in Toronto. What were your major takeaways, Huts, from what we just heard from Dave there?
Fluff. Just fluff. But I'm really on the same page as them, though. Like, it's like they need to do something that's going to just beef up that top six, that's going to make them more of a powerhouse. And again, I'm not against the Morgan Riley move. I just feel like his time's been good, and he just doesn't push you over the top when it matters most. I think he had some big goals. He had some big moments, but it's just a change of pace, some different guys. I like the fact of just getting some people in there that are going to be more meat and potatoes when it matters most. And again, how many years can we keep doing this, man? Again, oh, man, this is getting sickening, Nick.
Really is. I haven't seen Matthew Knies meet with the media. I was just told the other day, and I put this out on Twitter, it was just a bruise. So he escaped serious injury, just a really, really painful bruise for Matthew Knies. And I would think at some point in time he'll address the media today. Max Pacioretty, I've inquired about through, different sort of sources. Is there potential Pacioretty comes back? Because I thought he had a really good fit on the team. Like, health is going to be of concern with him. I was told, and he just put this out too, family's really, really important. I think he's got 4 kids playing hockey, cooking them up. He missed his family quite a bit this season. So if I'm projecting, probably more unlikely than likely that Max Pacioretty's back as a member of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Never say never. But you need to find a way to supplement these pieces. And the pushback for me when it comes to the top 6, like, they had Matthew Knies. I think the biggest piece that they really didn't have an answer to all season long was, the third line center, because it didn't end up being Scott Lawton to a degree. And also like a winger to play with Nylander and Tavares. But I think you lose sight of the focus that there's 4 really, really, really good players in this team, and they could not push through. Sometimes it just really doesn't matter. Like, for example, you look at the Oilers, like, Ekholm's not playing. They're still in the conference final. Their goaltending has been downright atrocious. They're still in a conference final. I'm just not a big fan of excuses. And I feel like in this market, there's always got to be an excuse as to why this team hasn't lived up to expectation. And if you're playing the blame game, I'm putting the onus is on the players, man. Specifically, the guys who make the most money did not push through, did not rise to the occasion, dissimilar to some other star players in the league. It's pretty black and white, plain and simple for me why this team is no longer playing hockey today.
Yeah, your game breakers, your big money guys have to be a difference maker down the stretch and in these big moments, and they weren't. And again, you can make excuses up and down the lineup. At times, guys were good, but again, it's just you look at the big dogs, and the big dogs have to be the big dogs. I think there needs to be some changes. They need to do that, but it's hard. It's hard to do it with cap and with no movement clause and what's going on. But at this point, I feel like more than ever, there has to be a shift. And I hope Tree Living is a guy that sees that. And, now with his taste, how long he's been there, and with the head coach he has with Craig Berube, what he wants in a player, where now Craig Berube isn't just this new coach coming in and this is the group. He's going to have a say. He's going to have a year of being with these guys, knowing what he can get out of them, knowing how he can maximize them. And with his experience, there's going to be guys that Craig Berube wants too, which I think he can communicate with Treliving. Where last time he came in, it was more just a bit of a whirlwind. Where now I think it sets the template a bit better. And even in my time when I was at when I went to a game and I had a chance to chat with Shane Doan, he talked about OEL and how he was a big contributor in getting OEL there because he knew him from Arizona and he thought he was so good with Florida last year. Now you have different people around you and a year of just being with the GM and trying to build a team and learning from this year's playoffs, looking at Carolina and how they're structured and how they're winning and what's going on and how can we, it is a copycat league and you have to constantly be evolving and trying to learn. So I think that will really help this team moving into next year. The fact that Berube's been there for a year with Treliving.
So Knies addressing the media right now says he wasn't 100% for Game 7, declines to identify the specific nature of the injury, said he was always going to play in Game 7. What an absolute warrior. And I think that's a big positive to grab from this season in general. It's tough to grab positives when it's a disappointing conclusion, but Matthew Knies and his progression, man, incredible. The leaps that kid took in his career this season, just dragging the team into the fight. I went as far to put out on social the other day that I think Matthew Knies deserves an A. I mean, why not? Gabe Landeskog became the youngest captain in NHL history way back when. And I think Knies clearly is cut from a different cloth, but been so impressed with his demeanor, the way he conducts himself, the way he plays the game. Love Matthew Knies. Yeah,
and he's got a lot to go off, too. What I love about Matthew Knies is just the way that he plays with so much jam. And he is a guy that he's that new age player you need. Right? Like he can do it all, but he has a big body. He's physical and he's only going to get better. The experience he gained from this was huge. And I think that's the guy that you want to start to build around. Those are the kind of players that are going to drag you into a series and keep you around the playoffs. And he did great. And the payday he's going to get coming, he is much deserved there.
Yeah, and I know there's speculation about an offer sheet. We've been reporting since November. Matthew Knies is locked in on being a Toronto Maple Leaf, and he goes to tell the media today, I want to be here. I want to play here. That's all that matters to me. Repeats this verbatim twice in response to consecutive questions about free agency. People are going to try to drum this up a bit because of the season Matthew Knies had. You got to think this is high atop the priority list of Brad Treliving. Is like, what are we giving this kid? Because he has earned, it seems, every penny. And it'll be a big question. But I have no doubts in my mind they'll come to a resolution. And even the idea of an offer sheet, I just think is foolish. I think Matthew Knies loves being a Toronto Maple Leaf. I really do.
For sure, too. And I think the money that he's going to give up, you start to get in that pick range where it's a lot. It gets really high, and that gets a little worrisome, I think, for teams looking at offer sheeting Matthew Knies. But that being said, I think now teams, when you're looking at drafting and scouting, is like a guy like Matthew Knies is setting the template for like a future pick, and you want these big body guys that can do it all. So it's been a fun fit for him, and I think the sky's the limit moving forward for Knies, for me, Nick.
At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as we continue to give live reaction analysis to Locker Room Cleanout Day. Such a tough day because it pretty much marks the conclusion of the Maple Leaf season, and it marks the conclusion of another disappointing finish where ultimately we're not covering a Stanley Cup parade, not even close to a Stanley Cup parade. It's the harsh reality that coming up tonight in Raleigh, it's Game 1, the Carolina Hurricanes hosting the Florida Panthers. But I think they did build some momentum. I don't know where you stand on this team, but I do like where they're at right now compared to even last year at this time. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. For sure. I don't think I'm as salty as I was last year, in that Bruins series and where they're at. It felt like they were so far behind. And again, circling back, Craig Berube, I think that's important. Another year, a year of building, getting your message across and the non-negotiables and where you're at is going to be important, I think, for the summer. But, again, it is bittersweet, the locker room clean out and the season being over. And again, now you got two teams that you can compete with, that you could beat playing in the Eastern Conference Final. So I think that's a bit disheartening. Again, I don't know if we're going to hear anything today that is going to be of any substance that is really going to make us scratch our head and do whatever, but this is part of the process and it's part of the, the way the league works.
Knies on Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews. I was pretty fortunate to play with the two best players in the NHL. So I guess Knies has never seen Connor McDavid, Leon Jack, Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar play hockey, among others. But what else is he going to say?
What else is he going to say? Just what else are you going to say when they tell you if you want to come back to be a Leaf, right? You're going to say yes. You're going to play it up. So yeah, for him, you know, I think the sky's the limit. It's going to be another big year of training, and think how much this guy's still going to get better. He's still going to get better. He's
22. It's actually wild
crazy
when you think
and he's
about
going
it,
to learn
right?
the league, and you start to adjust. You start to understand like the do's and don'ts of managing your body and road trips and everything that comes in. I remember as I like started to get better and stronger and smarter and become more of a man and evolve as a human, and you just learn how to do things better and more efficient. You learn from each year and everything you're exposed to. So it's going to be exciting, you know, his growth curve moving forward.
In support of Sick Kids, got a bunch of super chats to get to. Michael writes in, appreciate this, Michael. The demeanor of the core are same of a person who working in a bank. Never get mad, which is big contrast to players like Gilmore, Kachuk, often criticized or characterized as bad boys, typically thrive in the playoffs. You're right. And again, getting back to the point about media, like I never heard Gilmore or Roberts or Neuendijk or any of them, the Sundin, complain about the media just being too harsh on them and they couldn't do their daily activities and tasks and jobs. And maybe it's social media, maybe it's a different era, different build of these players. But maybe I'm biased too, but I don't subscribe to the fact that we're too harsh. I think we're appropriate in our response to this team just year after year. It's shit show after shit show. Meantime, Shane Braun writes in, what would it cost to get Owen Tippett? I've obviously watched a lot of Owen Tippett. My buddy coached him in Mississauga. Stud of a player. I don't see the Flyers moving Owen Tippett, especially with Rick Tocchet coming in there. So I can't see that. I think it would cost an arm and a leg. And I know Dave brought up trades. I think it's going to be hard for the Maple Leafs to make trades. They really don't have first-round picks. They don't really have assets that teams want outside of maybe Cowan and Danford. And that's why I think it's going to be a very interesting offseason, because free agency for me is the likeliest route. Maybe they get creative, maybe Morgan Riley, but again, his value is not high at all. But who knows? I don't know the trade route's going to be the best route the Maple Leafs will attack this summer. Michael writes in once again, Nick, I am willing to bet $1 million if they re-sign 91 for more than $5 million as their second line center. They will enter, or they'll never win the cup. What do you think that contract looks like for John Tavares? I'm going to say 3 years, $6.5 million. Over or under on that?
I guess I hope under, just because the fact that maybe he takes a little bit because he wants to stay there and wants to see this through, doesn't want to uproot again, like, you know, with a family, but he's still really good. Like, that's the thing.
He had
like,
a great year.
He's still really good. And it's hard to just it's hard to undervalue yourself as an athlete too. That's the biggest struggle, right? It's easy to be like, oh, you know, hometown discount, but like then you start like looking at guys that make the same amount of money, and these guys are competitive. And I feel like that's something that is important to players that are really good players, is like, you know, getting paid and showing your value and that you worked your whole life to be good at it. So that being said, I do hope there's a discount, but I think he could earn all of that, Nick. I think he's worth it, and he continually produces. And again, he is still got some tread on that tire.
I mean, ideally, and I agree with you, ideally, like you get him for like $5 million per season. But I've always looked at the Joe Pavelski contract from a couple years ago. I think it was 3 times 6 as a fair comp for where John Tavares is at in his career. And maybe he's even better than Pavelski was at that point of his career. But yeah, I think the range around 6.5 to 7 AAV is probably going to be the landing spot. Just my opinion. Don't have any background on that type of information, but it just seems like all year they've had conversation about it being around that number. So very curious on that front. But yeah, I would say it's highly likely John Tavares returns next year. And I think it's okay. I was going to ask you too, like what seismic change for you? Like, I assume that you're looking for big time change. Like, what would constitute change? Is Mitch Marner moving on and that's it enough seismic change for you? Is that rock the boat enough?
I do like the Morgan Riley conversation with Pñota.
Yeah.
I think that's something that can happen. Just like a spark there, something to create. I think free agency, a big splash in free agency would be something that I would like as well. The Ekblad conversation, I think, is important. You know, then just from there, just beefing up a bit, just a little bit more like non-negotiable guys that are going to play that Craig Berube style and less like fluff on the outside. I'd rather see finish third in division, maybe just past the wild card, but you're like built to win, like you're not this high flying, and you just keep building upon what Craig Berube has. Like, it's one thing to Craig Berube comes in and he implements a plan of like, hey, this is the way we're going to play. It's going to be non-negotiable. We're going to be, tighter checking, none of this, bullshit 6-5 wins and flying all over the zone. But now you start to have that year in there, and then you start to really get players that can play that, right? Now you have another, add some guys that are a little more beef in there. The Nick Robertson, he's gone. I think you talk about Holmberg and Yarncroc, those guys that just aren't like heavy in the corner. And I think you get a few pieces like that could really help, along with your Nylanders. Your Matthews is healthy. You're still going to be creating offense in that sense. But then come playoff time, now you're looking at a deep lineup that can come way more intimidating when they can keep rolling at you every single game. You look at Florida, it's just like you knew they weren't really going to budge. Yes, they lost a few games, but man, they were very consistent that whole series.
All right, let's get out of here. I want to get in the action for Stanley Cup playoffs at Bet365. They got you from game props, player props, totals, and the money line. You can even bet on futures like series winners, conference champions, the Stanley Cup champions, and much, much more. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app and get in the game. Official partner of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Must be 19 or older, Ontario only. Please play responsibly. If you're someone you know has a gambling problem, visit connexontario.ca. I know a couple people asked in the chat, when are we going to hear from Tree Living Shanahan? I don't believe it's going to be today. Don't quote me on that. But I haven't heard or seen anything on social media that would suggest the Brain Trust will be talking today. Maybe I'm wrong, so stay tuned for that. Obviously, if they do talk, we'll cover that on tomorrow's show. But what are your thoughts? We got game 1 ECF tonight. The Carolina Hurricanes hosting the Florida Panthers. I'm looking at the under in that game.
Yeah, I think the under is a good call. I'm going to take the Carolina Hurricanes. I think they win this game. I think the rest versus rust come into play a little bit. I think the rest is going to be important for a team that doesn't really wow you with puck skills. It's just direct. It's hard hockey, and I think a little bit of rest is going to help them. And the Panthers are in a tough spot, coming off of Game 7. I know they whacked Toronto, but still, Game 7, the mental, the physical wear and tear. I look for Carolina to win today, and I do like I would take the total under for Florida Panthers goals. I think they defend real hard tonight.
Yeah, they're a studly team, and so is Carolina. I think there's no pretenders in the Final Four this year whatsoever. Amber the Sag writes in, what's coming up in the Leafs offseason for this channel? For those of you new to the channel, again, at the Leafs Nation 401, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We carry along pretty much all summer long. We'll be doing 5 days a week until at least early July, and then we sort of take some time for sure. In the summer, I believe in the second half of July, we'll go down to 3 shows a week. And then most of August, either 2 shows or 1 show a week. But if anything happens, we will have you covered, rest assured, here over at the Leafs Nation. So don't fret. We're not going anywhere. In fact, coming up on tomorrow's show, I'm going to sit down with Rick Vive. I don't know if you caught this yesterday in the Toronto Sun, but he just hunted down the Leafs. And I love that from a Maple Leafs legend, not being afraid to give their opinion. And so Rick Vive is coming up on tomorrow's show. I'm going to ask him about his comments. He had a really good piece in the Toronto Sun yesterday about Mitch Marner. Maybe it was time to move on. He thinks Sean Tavares would re-sign in Toronto. Obviously, shit on the effort in Game 7 from the team. So that's coming up. We got you guys covered. We're not going anywhere, folks. Don't worry.
That's it.
Right, Huts?
We're here. Well, I'm just filling in for that big sexy Jay Rosehill there with his what is he got working today? Fireman and keeping everybody safe. Hey, the guy does it all.
Nobody knows that. No, I'm kidding.
He does it all. He does it.
A lot of people in the chat talking about my printer. Yeah, maybe that's why the Leafs lost both games in Florida. I was unable to bring my printer on the airplane. I don't know if you caught. Remember, I brought up in round 1, I traveled with my printer.
Oh, yeah. This is on you. You know what? That's my favorite thing. I was giving Zach Phillips there, obviously a guy we know all too well.
Yeah.
He's like, well, we didn't go to Greta Game 3. That's why we lost. And I was like, I remember as a player, I'd be like on a streak or something and winning. And guys would be like, hey, I've been wearing my lucky socks, or I've been bringing my lucky sock to the game. Like, yeah, that's why we're winning, or that's why we're losing. I love it.
Yeah, I got nothing left. I think Michael had one more super chat. You're Mr. Super Chat today, Michael. Really, really appreciate that. Yeah. Michael writes in last, is a show with a Florida player who complained. What's Theta? Theta is a show with a ex-Florida player who complained Leafs fans on Mitch. Then host asked him how much he will sign in Florida. He said max 8 mil. We got to clean up the grammar a bit, Michael. I can't even read to begin with. Anyways, Huts, any final words before we wrap here? We're going to be back tomorrow again, Rosie, back in the mix for the Wednesday edition.
No, we squeezed this one dry, buddy.
Yeah, we did. I reiterate, I can't stand locker room cleanout day. Big takeaways, Mitch Marner. I think save Feeney. He used loved in past tense. That's my major takeaway. Austin Matthews revealed he's hurt, got hurt in training camp, would not specify. So confirmation on what we already knew. Craig Berube happy with his time in Toronto. Blah, 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 blah. Into the offseason we go. I think the real meat and potatoes. I want to hear from Brad Treliving. I want to hear from Brendan Shannon. Great stuff today. Huts at the Leafs Nation 401. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Leafs Morning Take wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com. And lastly, my main man, producer Vic, thank you so much for supplying our group chat with the quotes here from Locker Room Cleanout Day. And I guess I should thank Dave Pagnotta for joining us from the Leafs practice facility. And yeah, we'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews. We got clips. We got epic rants by Jay Roseau. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.